I brought with me the Omni, 4,155 pages. When was it produced? In the dead of the night, 1:30 in the morning when it was released. Now, people argue that it's conservatives' fault. You don't have the Christmas spirit. Somehow you're holding up government. Well, whose job is it to produce this? The people in charge of spending, the people in charge of both of the parties. When did they know that this would be necessary? Well, it's in the law, September 30th. You got 9 months, almost 10 months, to produce a plan, to have a spending plan. They weren't ready on September 30th, so they voted themselves 90 more days. They weren't ready last week either, so they voted themselves another week. And now we have it at 1:30 in the morning this morning. But what's the clamor? The clamor is to vote. Vote now. Let's get it done. Why are you standing in the way of spending? Well, the real question is this. What is more dangerous? What is more dangerous to the country? $1.1 trillion in new debt, or as Republican leadership likes to say, oh, but it's a win. It's a big win. We're getting $45 billion for the military. So which is more important? Which threatens the country more? Are we at risk for being invaded by a foreign power if we don't put $45 billion into the military? Or are we more at risk by adding to a $31 trillion debt? I think the greatest risk to our national security is our debt. The process stinks. It's an abomination. It's a no-good, rotten way to run your government. $6 trillion entity, and they want 24 hours to process this, and then they want to go forward. I will be demanding 2 amendments. One, that this goes against the budget rules. The pay-go rules say you can't do this. You can't have all this new spending unless it's offset. We will also be demanding that the pay-go rules are increased. Instead of taking 60 votes to evade the rules, we're going to ask that it be a 2/3 vote to evade the rules. The American people don't want this. They're sick and tired of it. They're paying for it through the nose with inflation. Adding $1 trillion to the deficit will simply fuel the fires that are consuming our wages and consuming our retirement plans. It's a terrible system. Someone needs to stand up. We're standing up, and we're going to say no.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And guys, we knew the spending bill was coming. You know, I warned you at the beginning of the year what was going to happen. And now we have the Hegelian dialectic. We know Congress has been spending all this money. Now that when Americans really need it, they're not going to spend it. $1.7 trillion bill, 4,000 pages at the last minute. And guys, we know we've seen this movie before. And we know with rising interest rates, 15% tax on these big corporations. The United States economy is only going to get worse. And now we have the Bank of Japan letting yields rise. And they haven't even started raising rates. And we know once they start raising rates, it's going to hit the economy even worse. Because we know they're still the highest foreign debt holder when it comes to U.S. debt. So guys, you know, I give you the truth, nothing but the truth. Yes, the truth hurts, but it sets you free. But when I give you the truth, you hate me. You're going to watch over 2023 and 24, the fall of America to Babylon. I know it's the holidays. I know you don't want to hear that, but you're definitely about to witness it. You do not want to be on the wrong side of history, where the robots, algorithms, and drones take over the economy, pay each other with crypto, and the sheep are going inside the metaverse. And we had SBF. We know he was working on derivatives, putting them on blockchain and being ran by an algorithm. So therefore, the masses would own nothing, but they will be happy. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Could be relenting, Becky. Let me give a little caution in there. Until now, the BOJ has been the odd bank out when it comes to tightening monetary policy in the face of higher global inflation. Now you got to ask the question whether it's tweaking policy or joining the tightening crowd. This morning, the Bank of Japan, as you said, surprising, shocking, stunning markets around the world by lifting the cap on the 10-year Japanese yield to 50 basis points from 25. The target is still 0, but it'll be allowed to drift as high as 25. The effect has been global. U.S. stock futures plunged, then they rallied most of the way back. Treasury yields surged, the yen strengthened against the dollar. The dollar weakened globally on the move, and this was not generally expected to happen for several months. The trouble for understanding this move is that the governor of the Bank of Japan insisted this is about improving market function and maintaining its yield curve control, not the beginning of a tightening cycle. Here's a quote from Hirohiko Kuroda's press conference this morning. He said, quote, "Today's step is aimed at improving market functions, thereby helping enhance the effect of our monetary easing. It's therefore not an interest rate hike." The BOJ's problem has been that the 10-year yield was continuously trading at the top of the 25 basis point range, and other maturities have been volatile beneath that. Yet, Japanese inflation has been on the rise, moving from deflation in April to now show positive rates for both headline and core, though core remains below its 2% target. But Kuroda has suggested the inflation comes mostly from higher import prices and a weaker yen, not from domestic sources. So now you got to step back. You got to think about this, figure out if you should take Kuroda at his word that this is about market functioning, not the start of a tightening cycle. Then you got to prepare for Kuroda's exit in April, where a more hawkish governor could come in. Guys, there was a Reuters story that I just read, an analysis of this that said, the Bank of Japan gives an inch, investors ready to claim a mile. And I don't know where to come out on that, but that's the tension right now in this move this morning.
And Roger, what do you think? Is this the beginning of the end of the ultra-loosening policy for Japan?
The market certainly thinks so, and I think that also might be the case. And the reason is that they're also starting to see a pickup in inflation. And the expectation next year in Japan is that inflation will be 2% or so. And if that proves to be the case, then the ultra-loose policy will have done its job and will no longer be necessary. So this might be the precursor towards a fundamental shift in a decades-old policy in Japan.
Yeah, you talk about inflation there being high. It's nothing like we see in most of the rest of the globe. But 3.8%, I think, was the latest read on a month-over-month basis. And that is incredibly hot when you're looking at a place that's had zero inflation for decades.
No, absolutely right. And the other thing to recognize is that this very low monetary policy stance in Japan has made Japan one of the largest exporters of capital to the rest of the world. Back in July, I think they were the largest owner of U.S. Treasuries in Japan at about $1 trillion. So the possibility that Japanese investors now get rewarded for keeping money at home has big impacts in fixed income markets around the world, and you're seeing that play out.
This was a decision he was making to go ahead with extradition that was against his best and strongest legal advice. How do you digest all of this? How would you say things are playing out?
I think walking through chaos would probably be the best way to describe it. I mean, I think it's something that's unprecedented. I've been practicing law 37 years. I've worked on international extradition matters involving securities fraud cases, and it's something I've never seen before because, to me, close coordination with local counsel is critical. I mean, one of the things we talked about on Friday was to an extent Bankman-Fried's gamesmanship, and I guess one of the questions is whether the request to see the indictment reflected his having been told that there was likely to be a much more robust indictment that would be forthcoming as a foundation for its ultimate extradition. But I think, I really think it was just a fundamental lack of communication and lack of coordination that we saw yesterday, because as you've indicated, as we've heard from Kate, I mean, now he's planning to waive extradition, which to me simply means he's coming back. He'll probably be arraigned in a U.S. court, I would think, as early as tomorrow. And I interpret that to mean, even though, again, as we discussed on Friday, I think his best strategy, consistent with what the Bahamian lawyer was saying, was that he should not be waiving, it should be fighting extradition, is that he's coming back to the United States. He's going to appear in court. I think ultimately, and probably in not too distant future, he's going to enter a guilty plea, and I think he's going to cooperate.
So at this point, you think he's going to throw himself at the mercy of the court? I mean, this is not someone who is not legally astute. Both of his parents are lawyers. They are professors at Stanford Law School. Are they advising him separately? Can you make heads or tails of this? Or is he just ignoring them too?
It really is impossible to figure out what is going on. I mean, the one that as we've talked about, because Friday we talked a little bit about conspiracy theories. One of the questions is, was yesterday a little bit of an act too? In order to, at some point, to be able to say, I really did not understand the proceedings before me. I did not understand the proceedings in the Bahamas. I did not understand what extradition was going to mean. But ultimately, there's going to be a dialogue between him and the court, whether it's the court in the Bahamas or the court in the United States, in which he is going to have to acknowledge that everything has been explained to him. He understands the proceeding, and he's knowingly waiving whatever rights he would have, whether it be to contest extradition or ultimately as part of a guilty plea, including waiver of his appeal rights. So from whom he's getting personal counsel, we don't know. But at the same time, I think what we saw yesterday was fundamentally a lack of communication, coordination between and among the lawyers more than anything else.
We're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort. And China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.
The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.